Hi there, this is Nick Dutch. I'm back on the camera again one more time, slightly out of focus. There we go, just quickly remedy that for you. Just doing this video very quickly before I go to bed because it's late, I'm tired, so what? This is again in relation to a private message. I'm just going to go through it bit by bit. It says here, I was wondering whether you could do a video about which facts help you change from being a conspiracy theorist to being someone with a saner, more normal worldview. Right. I don't think it's quite that simple. It wasn't just a question of a few facts for me, because you know how it started. I wasn't sleeping, I was physically ill, malnourished, and I made the mistake of tuning into the Alex Jones channel on YouTube, and, you know, I went out of control. Because I ended up fearful. Now, in my particular case, a lot of the things which created the problem was the fact that a fear issue or a form of neurosis had been created as a result of being exposed to this media, which was basically trying to tell me that everything, even the clouds above my head in the sky, were somehow conspiring against me. You know, because that's what Alex Jones was presenting at the time. And to someone like me who was physically ill, malnourished, not sleeping, very unwell at the time, physically anyway, because I had this like terrible feverish bug, and you know what fevers do for you anyway, or do to you. So I developed extreme paranoia. Now, a paranoia like that cannot be shifted with a singular fact. I just had this like vague moment of clarity at some point, and I started trying to sleep at night rather than to sleep during the day, which I can't do anymore. And also to have better food and trying to bring myself into a healthier style of life. And I then dedicated myself to watching skeptical and atheistic videos here on YouTube every single day. So I would look out for arguments like that, and I learnt about the strawman logical fallacy and all the rest of that kind of stuff. So all these skeptical videos out there, they have a good purpose, and they can be used by an individual who wants to use them intelligently for the purposes of giving themselves cult exit counseling, basically. So there is a benefit to some of the things that the atheists are creating, even though I'm not necessarily in favour of atheism myself. But there's a real benefit there. It was not one singular fact. I don't think that you can approach someone and say, well, have you heard of this? Have you heard of that? And then completely change them from being oh my god, the reptilians are trying to take over the universe, I must not vaccinate my children because there might be a mouse's brain inside it, and it'll turn my children into little mouse with little whiskers going squeaky, squeaky, squeaky all the time. Yes, it will, because that's what the vaccines are there to do. Yes, then the reptiles will come and eat the mice, and ooh, it's terrible, and all that kind of whatever they're thinking at the time, you know. I mean, the fear and paranoia that these New World Order conspiracy theorists have is an issue, okay? It's a mental abnormality, or at least that's the way it appears to be. It is created by people who are selling fear and are connecting things which they themselves are afraid of. These people themselves are afraid of. To like new ideas, and then eventually there can be an addictive cycle going on. You know, you can get addicted to the fear, and it becomes being a bit like a thrill seeker. Okay, you can actually get addicted to having the shit scared out of you every fucking day. Because like there's adrenaline going on and all sorts of other chemicals in the body, and there's some kind of strange, peculiar satisfaction to that. So you gotta be careful if you personally are watching all that kind of media as to what effects your own body chemistry is having on your brain. Okay, you're with me so far. You can't give a fact or say, well, here's another point of view. So the individual needs to look at themselves and think, I'm not normal now. I'm not normal. Okay, there's something missing here. I'm doing something wrong. And how they realize that would have to be very personal. I mean, in my case, I suppose it was just a recognition that something wasn't quite right. And I was stockpiling rice at the time. I always have been stockpiling rice even since I was a recent graduate, and always picking up bad quality jobs, but still needing to eat between bad quality jobs and pay the rent. So that's why I always stockpiled rice. But I kind of went overboard, and didn't plan it properly, and so on and so forth. And I accumulated some of the most peculiar, irrational things that would serve no purpose under any circumstances, and that sort of made me think, what is wrong with me? Yeah, I mean, it was a dark time. If you want to get someone out of that, poo-pooing their argument won't necessarily help, because it'll just create an us versus them, or yeah, you're in bed with the Illuminati, that kind of mentality going on. You can't really just turn around to them and say, everything you say is a load of shit. I mean, sometimes it could actually help to temporarily agree with them, okay, just to gain their confidence, and then elaborate upon aspects of their argument. Say, yeah, I mean, the Illuminati, so what does that word actually mean? Well, there's a connection to the Bavarian cults. There's the idea of just rich and powerful people who've got a lot of power and money. So let's just say that a lot of rich and powerful people have got a lot of power and money. Okay? Now, how does that affect you? And they'll come out with well, they want to depopulate the planet. Well, how do you know that? Well, there's the Georgia Guidestones. And there's no evidence that was put up by anybody that has any connection to the Rockefellers. So, sorry, I don't quite see where you're coming from there. Why do they want to depopulate the planet? Because they care more for environmentalism, and environmentalism is good, and people are evil. Okay, well, can you just elaborate upon that a bit? Get them to tell you why they think it. Get them to give you evidence and say, yeah, you got a good point there. Always say you've got a good point there. Or, yeah, I can see where you're coming from. Then they'll think, oh, that's good. And then what you do is look at one of the points. Just look at one of the points, okay? Calmly. Because you don't want to piss them off. You want to work with them. And just look at that one point and then maybe change it a little. I mean, when I'm going through the process of trying to educate pagans into what the meaning of the word magic is in terms of the writings of Aleister Crowley, I've got to choose one little fact, for which there is evidence that they themselves will already know about. And that I do, and then that can have a bit of a road to Damascus moment, so to speak, in the mind of the pagan in question. So, think carefully about how you use your language when you're with them. Okay? There has been forms of cult exit counselling which I have done in my work. But of course they've had to come to me. I didn't go out to them and say, hey, I'm going to change you because I've got the truth and the light. They will come to me and say, well, I'm involved in this group. And it's hard. There's nothing about trying to get someone out of a stupid or inappropriate or undesirable way of looking at life, which is at all easy. It's very hard, but the fight has to go on in some ways. And if you can't change that person, then find someone else who you can at least talk to about it. But also, maybe even your interpretation of the problem might have some issues as well. And your own interpretation of how to educate them into a more rational perspective might also have a few issues. So the growth has got to go on both sides, really, hasn't it? It's a very, very difficult balance to get. But I wish you all the best of luck. God bless.